Okay, we're going to go through some basics on TinkerCad. So first of all, once you're inside TinkerCAD and you've signed in, you'll probably want to click on TinkerCAD up here. And once you click on this, this will bring you to your main screen. So if you've never done this before, it'll start you in Learn. Otherwise, click on this and it'll get you here. All right, so we're going to start with Create New Design. So I'm just going to click on Create New Design, and once this pops up, we will be brought into our normal work plane. All right, so a couple things. First of all, over here on this left-hand side, you're going to notice that you have this little object. This, if you click on it and you just kind of drag, it will kind of show you exactly where you are looking at. And this is going to be the easiest way to kind of manipulate where we're going to look at. So what we're going to start off with, we're just going to start off with a simple little box. Okay, I'm going to move this box over here, and you're going to see once I do that, I now have this little 3D object that's in there. Now, before we get too far into this, I should point out you've got some options here. So if you click on here, you've got a perspective, which when you move this, I think this one looks a little different. Okay, but you also have this one that says orthographic, and this is the one I prefer, but again, this is your personal choice on which one you like. So this can get a little confusing very quickly. So the thing I like to do right off the bat is if you look over here, there's a ruler. So I'm going to drag this ruler over here. And the reason I like this is once I drag and drop this down here, then I can see all the dimensions of my cube. So you're going to notice it's 20 by 20, so it's 20 by 20 by 20. Okay, and that's going to be a perfect little cube that we have. Now, you're going to notice right here, if I click on this and if I click and drag this out, then that starts to kind of mess with my actual shape. So if I click on one of these, and let's just say I'm going to make this 30, and if I hit tab, or I can just click over here, I'll type in 30. Now you can tab all the way through it, but these are the main dimensions that I'm going to kind of mess with. So now I've got this 30 by 30 little cube. So I can drag these out if I want, and this over here, I can also raise this and lower this just by clicking on this little middle circle. Don't get confused by this. You've got this object right here. What this does, if I click on this and I raise this up, you're going to notice that it changes this. This is telling me how far off of the ground that I am. So right now, you're going to see I'm 8. So if I want to change this, I can hit 0 again, and this will put it back on the ground. I can click on this once more and make this 30, and now I'm still with my little cube. All right, now, once we have that, this is going to be a solid object. So I kind of want to drag your attention over here. This is not a solid object. Okay, this is going to be more or less a hole, and you can kind of see we can see through this. So I'm just going to kind of move this over here, and you can see it is hitting my cube at this location. And I'm just going to raise this thing up so I've got like one whole section where this is hitting. And once I have this, if I highlight both of these, so if I just drag and drop both of these, and then up here if I hit group, what this will do is this will then kind of put these two objects as one object, and because one's a whole, you're going to see it takes a bite out of this little cube. All right, and that's nice, but I don't really necessarily want to do that right now. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to Ungroup, and I can click on this, and I can maneuver this where I want. All right, so I'm going to kind of drag this back down for a second. Before we get too far into this, I'm going to do some simple things on this. So first thing is I'm going to do text. So I'm going to drag this. I'm going to type in test. So we have this. Now I'm going to also kind of make this a whole. So I'm going to put this on the side of my cube here in a second. Now if I look at this real quick, I can kind of tell immediately that this test is going to be much, much larger than my cube. So I'm just going to kind of drag this up, and then I'm going to shrink this down. So I'm just going to click and drag, and right about there. Got to click that. Let's see if that actually looks like it's still too big. So I'm going to click on this again, shrink this thing down even more. And this will fit. I can tell that's going to fit. But the problem that I'm going to have right now is, first of all, I could do this. Well, I guess I'll start with this. I'm going to move this up. So I'm just going to move this thing straight up here. And I'm going to push this over here. And the real question is this actually even going into this? So I'm going to get this little side view. And I'm going to push this thing down. Now I can see that it's actually going inside my cube. I can see that the bottom of it is definitely on the inside of my cube. And if I do this real quick, if I group that together, then I'm going to see that now I have this test that's in the top of my little cube, which is nice. But the problem that I have, if I just directly click on top, I can see that's not really centered. Right, so one of the things that I want to make sure that I do right off the bat is I want to make sure that this thing is centered. So I'm going to do this here, and I'm going to click on Align, and then once I get this aligned, it'll be good. All right, so now I see that this is definitely aligned, and we're in good shape, and I can see that that is looking great. Okay, now the next thing that I want is on the inside of this cube, I want this to be hollow. So this is where this is going to come in really, really handy. Okay, a second ago we just aligned this, but this object, we've got two little 3D objects, so I want to make sure both of these things are completely aligned. All right, so I'm going to click on this cube, and I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click on this cube. All right, so I got both of these selected. Now, and you're going to notice, let me do this real quick first. Notice that this align option is grayed out when I just have one selected. You have to have two objects selected before you can actually even do this. Okay, so now that I've got both of these selected, now I'm going to click align. Now this is where this gets really handy, because if I want this to be hollow in the middle, and let's see, before I do this, this is a 30 by 30 by 30. I want this to be, I'm going to make this a 15, and I'm going to make this a 15, and this is going to be 15. So exactly half of this is going to be hollow. So I'm going to click on this and click on this. So I got both of these. I'm going to align this now. And now I'm going to click this little center, and you're going to see that's going to more or less move this here in the middle. And I'm going to hit Command Z for a second just to show you how this works. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to make this a hole just so you can visually see this. And then I can change this back here in a second. So I've got these two. Okay, so I'm going to hit Align. When I click Align here, you're going to see it moves them automatically right there. But now I want to click right here. Now, if I move this view, this might help us see this a little better. Okay, if I click here, that's going to make sure it's directly in the middle. Right, but this one over here, I want this to be directly centered too. So I'm going to move this directly in the middle here. And now that I have done that, I'm going to click on the outskirts of this, make this solid. Okay, so I've got a hole that's floating there in the middle. And then I'm going to click on this outer cube is what I'm looking for. I'm going to click on test right there. And I'm also going to align this. So I'm not worried about this up and down. Okay, I'm not worried about that. This is already centered there, so I want to make sure this is centered right here. Once I have that, let's verify, let's make sure that cube is on the inside right. And that got off. So here, let me do this real quick. Okay, so if I have this, let me do this real quick. All right, so this is where this comes in handy first. Okay, so I'm going to move this off just for a second. Got both of these selected. Here's where I'm going to group this right off the bat. Okay, so I'm going to group that thing. And now, if I click and I make this a hole, you're going to see that I've got this, it's already there. So I know that's there. I'm going to do this again. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because when I was just grouping one object at a time a second ago, then that moved things around. So I'm going to align this one more time. Okay, I'm going to align it centered. And I'm also going to align it right there. And now I can group this together. Once I have grouped that, I can now see that I have this little test object that is hollow in the middle. Right? And you can do that with all sorts of objects with that. So that's a basic little rundown. Now, you've got other shapes, and you can change all these shapes. One thing I should show you here, if I have a half sphere, okay, one thing that you're going to notice real quick is if I drag this, this gets wonky really, really quickly. Okay, you can kind of see that's not really exactly the same shape. So if I hit Command Z, I want to show you. If you click on one side, if you hold down Shift, when you do this, everything will be the same dimensions when you size it. So it keeps those basic dimensions so everything is scaled properly. So holding down Shift is going to help you out tremendously when you go through this. The other thing I want to point out here too is you've got this that says basic shapes. But if you click on this, you're going to see you have a lot of other objects. Okay, and in fact, if you click under all, you will see that you now have a bunch of options that community people have made, as well as some other things. And one of the objects I want to show you once this loads, if this loads, for some reason I keep getting on Shark Guest, so let me refresh this real quick. Okay, there we go. That'll go a little faster. Underneath this, you're going to see one that is called curved words, right? And curved words is a very, very helpful little feature because you can change some things. First of all, we can say sample text. Oops. Be helpful there. So we have sample text. Now, I can also change the arc of this, and let's put an object down here so you can actually see this a little better. So I get just a basic shape here. So it sticks out just a little better. Okay, so I'm going to raise this text up here momentarily, if I can select this one. All right, there we go. And that one, you just kind of saw that a second ago. You have to make sure you have it in the center for it to actually select. Move this thing across if I can. This object, for whatever reason, is one of the more difficult objects to move. So I just kind of want to point that out as well. If you have issues with it, that happens, unfortunately. I'm moving the wrong one. I want to move this over here, though. Oh, I don't want to do that. Let me just go back to the community here. Delete that. You run into that issue there too, don't fret. That happens a lot. So that one again, since they've updated a couple of things, and that one again, kind of hard to move. So hopefully by the time you watch this video, it won't be that bad. I'm going to move this up so I can see it. Okay, so it's there. It's just kind of hidden underneath. This up a little bit more. There we go. So now, if I hit right around here, I'm going to just type in sample text. And you can do a couple things. First of all, I can kind of change the way this looks. Okay, so I can change the height of it. So if I want to make it thicker, so I can turn this into a hole, I can do that. I can also change the radius. So you can see that goes out really, really far. Or I can shrink this thing down. So this is going to be helpful when you have like a circle or something you're trying to get. You can also change the arc. So if you want to go all the way around, notice it'll spread out your letters, but you can do things like that. You can also change the size of that font too. So you can change that too. So if you want it larger, you can do something like that as well. Okay, now you're going to notice there's a picture option here, but I also want to show you that you can do some other things like that inside. Well, do they have it? It actually might be under there too. Under all, you've got a couple where you can actually do pictures, where you can do placeholders for pictures. So you can find some of those in here too. Some of those work very, very well. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll do something like this where we actually just import an SVG file. So let me show you that because that is actually helpful. See how you have import up here? I'm just going to go to Google real quick. And for right now, I'm going to type in just the shark. Okay, so I'm going to get a little sample shark image here. And if you go to tools, you're going to see you've got options here. So I've got size, I've got type. So I want like a clip art drawing of a shark. Okay, and I'm going to see some of these sharks look pretty good. I'm going to click this one though. This is the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to just right click on this. I'm going to hit save image as. Okay, I'm just going to save this. Let's go into my downloads. So I've got this great white shark going to my downloads. Again, if you click on this, then you can actually select where you want it to go. Right now I just wanted to go to downloads, so I'm going to save it there. Now, one of the links that I gave you is this online converter. Okay, so inside of your classroom under About, you'll see this online converter. I'm going to go to image converter, and I want to convert this to an SVG file. So when I click on convert to SVG, it'll automatically move you. Then it's going to say upload your image you want to convert to SVG. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on this great white shark right up there. Once I click on that, don't worry about any of this stuff here. I'm going to hit convert file. Okay, and once I hit convert file, it will automatically start to download, which you see that I've got this SVG file that is now in my downloads. Okay, so over here under import, I've got this object now. Now notice it will say STL, OBJ, or SVG. So I'm gonna, since I just converted this image into an SVG, I want to click on this SVG file right here. Okay, and I'm gonna move this from a scale of 100 to 10. Okay, not 101, to 10. So once I hit import, it should give me this little image right here. So you can see now I have this shark. Okay, so I can actually have this shark, and I'm gonna delete all this real quick. I'm gonna just put this shark on my cube right here. Okay, so first thing I need to do is I want it on this side. So right off the bat, I know I need to rotate this 180 degrees, right? And right there. Okay, there's my 180 degrees. So I'm going to move this shark over here, make sure it's about close to the same size. Again, I'm going to hold down shift just a little bit, shrink it down just a tad. Okay, like that otherwise. Now, the only problem is I want this to be on the side. Now, you can kind of see right off the bat, if I try to move this, that's going to give me an issue. So I'm going to kind of move this to this little left-hand side right here for a second. And you're going to see there's this cube, or not cube, these little curved arrows right here. If I click on it, I want to move this to 90 degrees, right? So now I've got it the right shape. I've got it about where I want. And now I'm just going to click on this, and I'm going to click on that since I've got both of these set up, and I'm going to align it. Okay, now first of all, I want this to more or less, let's see, I do want it to be kind of up in the air, so I want it to be the right height. Okay, and then that's more or less what I want. And the beauty of this, let me move this over here. I'm going to have this shrink in just a tad. Okay, and now I'm going to align it because I want it right about there. I don't want it to be in the center of this, don't want it to be inside. So I want it to be centered here, and then what we saw a second ago, it should be centered right there. The only other object I need to do is I need to click on this, turn it into a hole. Now that I have that a hole, I will group this together. Now that I have grouped this, now I've got this shark logo on the side. Now, if you zoom in with your track wheel, you can kind of see exactly what that's going to look like. Okay, so now I've got this little shark in there. So TinkerCad's a very, very powerful tool. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it, but these are the basics, and hopefully that will get you started. All right, thank you.